Jamie spent the next 3 days processing everything. Her roommate was an alien observer. Her boyfriend, the term felt official now, had been collaborating with said alien on classified interstellar research. And somehow she'd become entangled in something far bigger than her graduate thesis. "You've been unusually quiet," Violet noted as they shared morning tea. "Has the revelation disturbed your neural functions?" Jamie couldn't help but laugh. "My neural functions are fine. I'm just adjusting, understandable. Humans require time to integrate paradigm shifts." Violet sipped her tea, which Jamie now realized might not be Earth tea at all. "Do you wish I had not revealed my origin?" Jamie considered this. "No, I appreciate the truth, but I have about 1,000 questions. I will answer what protocols permit." And so began an extraordinary exchange. Jamie learned that Violet's species, whose name sounded like wind chimes when Violet pronounced it, had been observing Earth for centuries. They were physiologically similar to humans due to convergent evolution, with some notable differences in sensory perception and lifespan. "Our civilization detected your radio signals decades ago," Violet explained. "We've been sending observers ever since. Why the secrecy? Why not announce yourselves? History shows that premature contact between civilizations at different technological stages often destroys the less advanced one," Violet said matter-of-factly. "We wish to avoid cultural annihilation." That evening, Elias came over and the three had a remarkable conversation. Elias explained how his work with SETI had led to classified communication with Violet's people 5 years ago. "Only a handful of humans know the truth," he said. "International scientific leaders, a few government officials. When Violet requested housing near someone studying astrobiology, your name came up." Jamie's eyes widened. "So my housing coincidence was orchestrated?" Violet nodded. "Your research on biosignature detection aligns with our interests. We needed to determine if human science was approaching accurate methods of detecting life on other worlds." "And is it?" Jamie asked. "Your methods are innovative," Violet said diplomatically, "though misguided in certain mathematical assumptions." Elias smiled. "That's why I was so interested in your spectral analysis work. It's closer to the correct approach than anything I've seen." As they talked late into the night, Jamie learned about Violet's world, a planet with 3 moons, binary suns, and civilization built around collective knowledge sharing. The more she learned, the more she understood Violet's sometimes strange behavior. "Your obsession with precise timing," Jamie realized. "It's because your planet's rotation and orbit are different." Violet inclined her head. "My circadian rhythms are still adjusting to Earth's rotation speed. It's why I require specific observation hours." As the conversation continued, a more personal question surfaced in Jamie's mind. "Violet, you deliberately brought Elias and me together. Why?" Violet's expression became almost tender. "My people believe that understanding between worlds begins with understanding between individuals. Your complementary minds working together advance human science significantly. Additionally," she hesitated, "I've grown fond of you both. Your happiness matters to me, an unexpected development in my mission." Later, when Violet had retired to her room, Elias and Jamie sat close together on the balcony, contemplating the stars with new perspective. "Are you angry I kept this from you?" he asked, his fingers gently caressing hers. "I understand why you did." Jamie leaned against his shoulder. "Though it does explain why you were so interested in my unusual roommate," he laughed softly. "I was more interested in you from the beginning. Violet just gave me an excuse to get closer. So the brilliant professor needed an alien wing woman, apparently." His expression grew serious. "Jamie, working with Violet's people has shown me possibilities I never imagined. The science they've shared, carefully, gradually, could transform our understanding of the universe. And my research is part of this?" Elias nodded. "Your biomarker detection method, with some adjustments, could be the key to humans independently discovering life on other planets. It would be a natural step toward wider contact." Jamie processed this. "So I'm helping prepare humanity for first contact?" "In a way. Though the timeline is measured in decades, not science fiction immediacy." She turned to face him fully. "And us? Where does this connection fit into your cosmic plan?" Instead of answering with words, Elias leaned forward and kissed her. Under the same stars Violet had pointed to when she said home, Jamie felt herself falling into a different kind of gravity altogether. When they finally parted, Elias whispered, "Some connections transcend scientific planning. 3 months later, Jamie stood in the university observatory, making final adjustments to the new spectral analysis equipment. Her modified biomarker detection algorithm, subtly improved with insights from Violet, was ready for its first major test. Nervous? Elias asked, coming to stand beside her. Their relationship had deepened over the months, balancing professional collaboration with personal intimacy. A little, Jamie admitted. If this works, we'll be able to detect atmospheric biosignatures with 300% more sensitivity than current methods. What remained unsaid? This would bring humanity one step closer to independently discovering what Violet's people already knew: that life existed on multiple planets within scanning range of Earth telescopes. Elias squeezed her hand. The university board is already calling this the Parker-Reed method. Your graduate thesis is about to make history. Jamie smiled at the name they shared professionally. What no one but Violet knew was that last weekend, under a meteor shower, Elias had proposed. The ring, now hidden on a chain beneath Jamie's shirt, was their secret for now. Back at the apartment, Jamie found Violet packing her few possessions. "You're leaving," Jamie said. It wasn't a question. Violet nodded. "My observation period is complete. The communication window opens tonight." Jamie felt a surprising surge of grief. The alien observer had become a genuine friend. "Will you ever come back?" "Perhaps, though not in this form." Violet gestured to her body. "This biological adaptation is temporary. I'll miss you," Jamie said simply. Violet's expression softened in that now familiar way. "An unexpected development in my mission was learning to miss someone as well. Your species' capacity for attachment is remarkable." That evening, Elias joined them at a remote location in the mountains. The night was clear, stars brilliant against the dark canvas of space. "The signal has been sent," Violet said, consulting her silver device. "Transport imminent." Jamie had so many questions she still wanted to ask, so many things she wished they'd had time to discuss. "Will your people continue watching us?" "Always," Violet replied, "though with less direct intervention. Your species is progressing naturally toward the necessary discoveries." "Thanks to you playing matchmaker," Elias said with a smile. Violet's lips curved. "I merely accelerated an inevitable collision. Your gravitational attraction existed before my arrival." The silver device began to pulse with light. Violet turned to face them fully. "There is one final thing," she said. "My People's Council has authorized me to offer you both a choice." Jamie and Elias exchanged glances. "What kind of choice?" Jamie asked. "In 27 years, when official first contact occurs, Earth will be invited to send scientific ambassadors to my world. 2 positions are reserved for you should you wish to accept." Jamie's breath caught. 27 years? "The necessary technological and sociological developments require time," Violet explained. "This is merely advance notice." Elias's hand found Jamie's. "That's a lot to process." "You need not decide now. The invitation will remain open." Violet's device pulsed faster. "My time here is ending. But before I go, one last catalyst." She removed something from her pocket, a small crystal that caught the starlight in impossible ways. "A wedding gift for your upcoming union. It contains astronomical data your telescopes cannot yet detect, star maps to 5 habitable worlds." Jamie gasped. "How did you know about—" "Your elevated hormone levels and secretive behavior were obvious indicators," Violet said with what might have been a smirk. "Congratulations." Before they could respond, light began to surround Violet, not beaming down as in science fiction films, but emanating from within her, as if her body was becoming pure energy. "Until we meet again," Violet said, her voice taking on that musical quality Jamie had first noticed months ago. "Keep looking up." In a flash that momentarily turned night to day, she was gone. Where she had stood, a small patch of mountain wildflowers now grew, impossible in the winter cold. Elias's arm wrapped around Jamie's waist. "Well, Dr. Parker-to-be, how does it feel to have befriended an interstellar observer?" Jamie leaned into his embrace, staring at the spot in the night sky where she knew Violet's homeworld orbited, invisible to human eyes but forever imprinted in her awareness. "Like the beginning of something extraordinary," she replied. 6 months later, Jamie successfully defended her doctoral thesis. The Parker-Reed method revolutionized exoplanet research just as planned. A year after that, she and Elias married in a small ceremony beneath the stars. the crystal from Violet glowing softly on a shelf in their new home. Sometimes, on clear nights, they would sit on their balcony with 2 cups of tea and a third set empty. Low. When Jamie returned to the apartment that afternoon, she found it transformed. Soft blue lights created the illusion of nebulae across the ceiling. The dining table was set with elegant simplicity, and something that smelled incredible simmered on the stove. Violet emerged from her bedroom wearing a simple dark dress that made her violet eyes even more striking. The slight purplish undertone of her skin seemed more pronounced in the dim lighting. "You should prepare. He will arrive in approximately 47 minutes, Violet said, stirring whatever culinary miracle was happening in the pot. Jamie showered and changed into her best dress, a navy blue wrap that brought out the green in her eyes. As she applied minimal makeup, she caught Violet watching her from the doorway. "You're nervous," Violet observed. "Unnecessary. Your phenotypic features are well within human attractiveness standards. More importantly, your mind resonates with his." Before Jamie could formulate a response to this odd compliment, the doorbell rang. Exactly 47 minutes had passed. Dinner progressed with surprising smoothness. The food, Violet called it stellar fusion cuisine, was extraordinary, flavors dancing across Jamie's palate like cosmic radiation. Elias seemed equally impressed, both with the food and with Violet's extensive knowledge of astrophysics. "Your theory about atmospheric signature distortion through interstellar dust is remarkable," he said to Violet. "I've never considered that approach." Violet nodded. "Sometimes an outside perspective reveals what is hidden in plain sight." As they moved to dessert, some kind of luminescent blue. "Confection?" Elias turned to Jamie. "Violet mentioned you've been developing a new method for detecting biomarkers. I'd love to hear more." Jamie froze. She had mentioned this project to exactly one person, Professor Reed himself, yesterday. Violet smiled serenely. "Jamie speaks of your work often, sometimes all night in her sleep." Jamie choked on her wine. "In fact," Violet continued, "just last week she mentioned how your eyes remind her of event horizons, things she could fall into forever." Elias's eyebrows shot up as Jamie wished for spontaneous combustion. "She also mentioned finding your voice cosmically attractive, I believe was the phrase." "Violet," Jamie hissed, but Elias was smiling. "That's quite the compliment from an astrophysicist." His eyes met Jamie's, especially one whose mind I find equally fascinating. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of embarrassment and unexpected connection. Somehow, despite Violet's revelations, or perhaps because of them, the awkwardness dissolved into genuine conversation. By the time Elias reluctantly said he needed to leave, something had shifted between them. At the door, he hesitated. "Would you like to continue our discussion tomorrow? Over dinner, perhaps. Just the two of us?" Jamie nodded, unable to fully process what was happening. After Elias left, she turned to find Violet observing her with that enigmatic smile. "You revealed my secrets," Jamie accused. "I revealed truth," Violet countered. "Sometimes humans need a catalyst to overcome activation energy barriers." As Jamie stared at her mysterious roommate, she couldn't shake the feeling that Violet knew far more than she was saying. About everything. Part 3. Secrets Under Starlight. The next evening, Jamie returned from her dinner with Elias feeling like she was floating through space. Their conversation had flowed effortlessly from astrophysics to philosophy to personal histories. He'd walked her home, his fingers briefly intertwining with hers under the star-filled sky. She opened the apartment door to find Violet on the balcony, her face tilted upward toward a specific point in the night sky. "You appear happy," Violet observed without turning. "Your date was successful." Jamie joined her on the balcony. "It wasn't a date." "Well, maybe it was," she smiled. "Thank you. Even though your methods were mortifying, I think it helped break the ice." Violet continued staring at the stars. Humans often need external forces to overcome their inertia. "What are you looking at?" Jamie asked, following her gaze to an unremarkable patch of sky. "Home," Violet said simply. Jamie laughed. "Northern Europe is that way? I thought you meant like Finland or something." Violet's eyes reflected the starlight unnaturally. "I never specified which celestial body." Something in her tone made Jamie's skin prickle. "That's a good one." For a second, you almost had me believing you're an alien. Violet finally turned to her, expression unreadable. Would that possibility disturb you? Jamie hesitated, studying her roommate's unusual features. The violet eyes that sometimes caught the light at impossible angles, the slight purple undertone to her skin, the way she sometimes moved with too perfect grace as if calculating each muscle movement. I'm a scientist, Jamie said carefully. I'd need evidence before believing something that extraordinary. Violet's lips curved slightly. A reasonable approach. Evidence will present itself when necessary. Over the next 2 weeks, Jamie's relationship with Elias blossomed while her suspicions about Violet grew. She noticed how Violet could predict weather patterns with impossible accuracy, how she sometimes spoke in strange harmonics when tired, how plants seemed to lean toward her when she passed. Meanwhile, her connection with Elias deepened into something both professional and personal. They worked together in the lab during the day, developing Jamie's biomarker detection method, and spent evenings exploring their growing attraction. He was still her professor, so they maintained professional boundaries at the university, but alone, the chemistry between them was undeniable. You've transformed my understanding of spectral analysis, Elias told her one evening as they worked late in the lab. Your insights are revolutionary, Jamie blushed. Many of the ideas came from conversations with Violet, actually. She has an unusual perspective. Elias nodded thoughtfully. I've been meaning to ask about her. There's something familiar about her theories, like I've encountered them before in some obscure research. Before Jamie could respond, the lab door opened and Violet herself appeared, carrying a small silver device Jamie had never seen. Forgive the interruption, she said, her voice carrying that strange harmonic quality Jamie had noticed before. But tonight's stellar alignment is optimal for the final measurements. Elias straightened, his expression changing. Already? I thought we had more time. Jamie looked between them, confused. Wait, you two are working on something together. Violet approached, placing the silver device on the lab table. It hummed softly, projecting a holographic star chart unlike any Jamie had seen in Earth astronomy. Professor Reed recognized certain signatures in my research that indicated shared knowledge, Violet said carefully. We've been comparing notes on interstellar communication methods. Elias ran a hand through his hair, looking uncomfortable. I should have mentioned it, Jamie, but it's somewhat classified. Jamie stared at the holographic projection, recognizing none of the stellar formations. This isn't our local star cluster. Where is this? Approximately 62 light-years from your solar system, Violet replied. The Lyran constellation from Earth's perspective. Your solar system. Earth's perspective. The words hung in the air. Jamie, Elias said gently, there's something you should know about Violet, and about my research before I joined the university. Violet's eyes met Jamie's. I am not from Northern Europe. Jamie's scientific mind raced, connecting dozens of small observations into a pattern she'd subconsciously noticed but consciously denied. You're from there, Jamie whispered, pointing to the hologram. The Lyran system, Violet nodded once. My true designation is untranslatable in human language. Violet Nova is an approximation of my function as an astronomical observer. Jamie turned to Elias, whose expression confirmed everything. And you knew? All this time? Not at first, he said quickly. My previous work with SETI detected unusual signals from that region. When I met Violet and saw her research, I recognized patterns consistent with those signals. We've been collaborating since then. Jamie felt her world tilting. Her roommate was extraterrestrial. Her boyfriend? Professor? Whatever Elias was to her, he'd been keeping this monumental secret. Why are you here? She asked Violet directly. To observe human scientific development, Violet replied, and to determine if your species is ready for contact. Jamie's mind spun with implications. Ready for? Are there others? Here on Earth? No, I am the sole observer. Violet's expression softened, though I did not anticipate becoming so personally involved in my subjects' lives. Or playing matchmaker, Jamie added faintly. Elias moved closer to Jamie. I wanted to tell you, but there are protocols. International agreements. Interstellar agreements, Violet corrected. As the reality settled over her, Jamie realized why she'd felt such an immediate connection to her strange roommate. Scientists recognized fellow seekers of truth, even across the stars. Jamie Parker stared at the ceiling of the university housing office, counting the water stains while waiting for the housing coordinator to finish typing. 23 years old with a promising career in astronomy ahead, yet here she was, homeless 2 weeks before the start of the fall semester. "I have one option left," the coordinator said, adjusting her glasses. "There's a 2-bedroom in the graduate housing complex. The current tenant is rather particular about roommates, which is why the space hasn't been filled." Jamie sighed, tucking a strand of chestnut hair behind her ear. "At this point, I'd room with a ghost. When can I move in?" 3 days later, Jamie stood outside apartment 42B, luggage in hand. She knocked tentatively. No answer. She knocked again, louder this time. Still nothing. Just as she reached for her key, the door swung open. "You're early," said a woman with striking features and the most unusual violet eyes Jamie had ever seen. Her dark hair had an almost purplish sheen under the hallway lights. "I'm Jamie Parker, your new roommate." The woman blinked slowly. "Violet Nova. You were expected at 3:14 precisely." Jamie checked her watch. "It's 3:10. Precisely," Violet replied, stepping aside with fluid grace. "Punctuality is relative to expectations." The apartment was immaculate but strange. Star charts covered one wall, and a telescope pointed out the window despite the daylight. Various plants Jamie didn't recognize filled every windowsill, and the bookshelf contained texts in languages she couldn't identify. "The right side of the refrigerator is yours," Violet said. "I require silence between 2 and 4:30 a.m. for observation purposes. Do you have questions?" Jamie had approximately 100 questions but managed only, "Observation of what?" Violet's lips curved slightly. "Everything important happens in the darkness between stars." Over the next week, Jamie settled into an uneasy rhythm with her peculiar roommate. Violet kept odd hours, sometimes disappearing for entire nights only to return at dawn with notebooks filled with symbols. She ate strange foods and spent hours studying weather patterns and constellations. Despite her eccentricities, Violet proved surprisingly easy to live with. She was tidy, respectful of Jamie's space, and occasionally made tea that tasted like nothing Jamie had ever experienced, somehow reminiscent of starlight and distant horizons. Jamie's routine included long hours at the university's astrophysics lab, where she worked on her graduate thesis under Professor Elias Reed. At 35, Reed had already revolutionized theories about exoplanetary atmospheres and had the academic world at his feet. With dark eyes that seemed to contain the depths of the universe and a mind sharper than anyone Jamie had ever encountered, it was no wonder she'd developed an embarrassing crush on him. "You're distracted today," Professor Reed noted during their weekly meeting, his voice sending an involuntary shiver down her spine. "Sorry, just adjusting to a new living situation," Jamie mumbled, trying not to stare at his hands as he annotated her research notes. "Your work on atmospheric compositions of Kepler 452b shows promise. Have you considered the implications of trace element signatures?" he asked, leaning slightly closer. Jamie swallowed hard. "I've been developing a new spectrographic analysis method that might help identify biomarkers." His smile made her heart flip. "I'd like to see that. Perhaps we could discuss it over coffee sometime." That evening, Jamie floated back to her apartment, replaying the conversation in her mind. She opened the door to find Violet sitting cross-legged on the living room floor, surrounded by star maps. "Your pheromone levels are elevated," Violet observed without looking up. "The professor with the gravitational eyes?" Jamie froze. "How did you—" "I never told you about him." "You mumble in your sleep." Violet finally looked up. "Humans are transparent when unconscious." "Right," Jamie said slowly. "That's not creepy at all." Violet tilted her head. "I've upset you." "That wasn't my intention." Something in her genuinely confused expression made Jamie soften. "It's fine, just maybe don't mention the whole sleep-talking thing." "Understood." Violet carefully rolled up a star chart. "This Professor Reed, he studies exoplanetary atmospheres, correct? His research on methane signatures in distant worlds is fascinating." "How do you know about his research?" Violet's expression remained neutral. "I read extensively. Would you like me to prepare dinner? I've been experimenting with your Earth recipes." Before Jamie could question the odd phrasing, Violet added, "By the way, Professor Reed will be joining us for dinner tomorrow night. I invited him when I encountered him at the observatory this afternoon." Jamie felt the blood drain from her face. You did what? He expressed interest in meeting your roommate, Violet said simply. I believe this is what humans call an opportunity. Human, connection, secret. As Jamie stared at her enigmatic roommate, she couldn't shake the feeling that her carefully ordered universe was about to be thrown into beautiful, terrifying chaos. You invited my thesis advisor to dinner without asking me? Jamie paced the living room, nearly tripping over one of Violet's star charts. I can't believe this. Violet observed Jamie with that unnervingly calm gaze. Your attraction to him is obvious. His to you is equally clear. You both orbit each other without connecting. I merely provided the gravitational assist. Jamie stopped pacing. Wait, what do you mean his attraction to me? Professor Reed he doesn't. His pupils dilate 27% more when looking at you compared to other students. He leans 4.2 degrees closer when you speak. These are textbook indicators of human attraction. Violet stated this as if reciting from a manual. Jamie collapsed onto the sofa. Even if that were true, you can't just ambush me like this. What am I supposed to make for dinner? The man has published in the Journal of Astrophysical Research 17 times. Violet's expression softened slightly. I will prepare the meal. I've been studying Earth cuisine extensively. The next day, Jamie could barely focus during her lab work. She dropped 2 test tubes, miscalculated a basic equation, and jumped when Professor Reed appeared beside her workstation. Looking forward to dinner tonight, he said with a smile that transformed his serious face. Your roommate mentioned you've been working on something related to my Kepler research. I'm intrigued. She said what? Jamie squeaked. Professor Reed, Elias, ran a hand through his dark hair. Something about a new spectral analysis method for detecting atmospheric anomalies? Violet seemed quite knowledgeable. Jamie nodded weakly. She's well-read. She mentioned she's from somewhere in Northern Europe? Her perspective on astronomical phenomena is fascinating. Right. Northern Europe. Very far north, Jamie mumbled, wondering what exactly Violet had told him.